What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing the full steel skid plates for the GX550. So what we have here is our front skid with several access panels for oil changes. We have our transmission skid plate and our transfer case skid plate. As for hardware, the front skid hardware consists of 6 M8 bolts to mount the skid up, as well as 8 5/16 flatheads for these 2 access panels. We've applied some anti-seize to this hardware in preparation. Our transmission and rear skid are going to use these 4-inch 3/8 carriage bolts and 3.5-inch 3/8 carriage bolts in the middle with some nylock nuts. We also have these 3/8 button heads to fasten our transmission skid to our front skid. We have a cage nut that's going to go in this bendable nut insert. The tools you'll need for this are a 13mm socket, a 7/32 hex driver, a 3/16 hex driver, and a 9/16 ratcheting wrench. Let's get started. Okay, so we've lifted our skid plate in place. These steel skids are a bit heavier than our aluminum version, so I'd recommend getting a second person to help you with this. Now we'll thread in our M8s. We'll get them started by hand and then run them in with the power tools. So the frames of these GXs come with pre-threaded holes. So you'll use 2 on the front cross member, 2 on this center cross member that lines up with the front of the lower control arm, and then the last 2 on this rear cross member that's just where the transmission joins the engine. So we've run our bolts most of the way in. We didn't fully tighten it at this step just because we'll need a little bit of play in the back to get our transmission skid underneath this rear flange here. Once all the skids are in place, we'll come back and fully tighten these bolts. All right, so we've got the front of the transmission skid resting on the back of the front skid. Our slots are lined up with some press hardware, some captive nuts that are in the transmission skid. So this is where we'll run our 3/8 button heads. In the rear, we'll use these outer 2 square holes for our 4-inch carriage bolts. Those are going to go through the cross member. We'll catch those with a square strut washer and a 3/8 nylock nut. And then we'll run our shorter carriage bolts through these inner holes once we have our rear skid in place. I've applied some anti-seize to these button heads as well, and you'll use your 7/32 hex bit to drive these in. Okay, so in each of these outside square holes, we're gonna run our longer 3/8 carriage bolt until it passes completely through that frame cross member. And then you'll take one of these 3/8 strut washers that will rest on top, and then your 3/8 nylock nut. And again, we're gonna thread the nut most of the way there, but we don't want to go completely tight yet. And now we're ready for our rear skid. So our full skids, they come with this bendable nut insert plate. So this takes a 3/8 cage nut that'll be popped into this square hole. And then this section can be bent and shaped however needed to get it in place inside the frame so that we have threading in this square shaped hole. So there's a plastic cover here that will need to be popped out, and then that nut insert plate can be bent and put into place, and then whatever's hanging off can just be broken. Whatever's hanging off there can just be broken off. We're gonna leave this one in there from our aluminum skids and reuse that for our steel skids, but that's the way these guys work. Okay, so we've got our rear skid or transfer case skid in place. We're gonna start this 1.5 inch long 3/8 button head into our captive nut, and then we can run the shorter 3/8 carriage bolts, these 3.5 inch carriage bolts, with a strut washer and a nylock nut. And then once everything's in place, we'll just go back through and tighten everything down. With these inside ones, it can be a little bit hard to reach up in there, so I'd recommend leaving this side a little bit loose just to give you a little extra room to get the nut started. And then you can reach in there with this 9/16 wrench and tighten it all down. Okay, so now that we've got everything started, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna tighten these inside ones first and then move to the outsides, and then we'll go through and get everything else torqued down. Okay, so we have everything all set. Now we're just gonna go through bolt by bolt and tighten everything. We've tightened all these carriage bolts here on this rear cross member. Now we'll just go through and get this button head, these 3 button heads, and our M8s on the front skid. And then from there we can put on our axis panels and wrap it up. So these panels are near identical, but there is a small difference. One of them has a small bend in it. So you can see there's just a slight bend line here, some tick marks on the side. The one with the bend will go in the back here, and it coincides with the slight bend that's on this skid. So you'll be able to tell the difference once it's in place. Each panel should sit perfectly flush with the bottom of the skid. Once you have the right ones in the right place, then you can use these 5/16 by 1 inch long flatheads and get them started in each of the corners. And once you're ready to tighten them down, you'll use a 3/16 hex bit to do that. Again, I'd recommend putting anti-seize on these ones, especially where you will want to be able to remove these at least every 5,000 miles. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching. This GX550 now has full steel underbody protection. If you have any questions, make sure and drop them in the comments below, and we'll see you out on the trails.